Hey everyone, how you doing today? Thought I would show some new things and show some things in action, I guess, with the new flight model, S or HV to SV docking, as well as weights and volumes in a survival environment. So I'm in survival currently, um, and got a couple new things to show you. One by myself and one by another author. Um, To start with, I briefly showed this particular creation on the last video, and it was, well, obviously very far from complete. At this point, it's close to being completely finished. Um, and this is basically an SV designed to both move loot and lift a HV tank and mount it to the bottom of it, as well as some combat features and just general quality of life features, such as like a constructor and fridge and things like that in the vessel. Let me drop to the ground and break a leg. Darn it! um, yeah, I guess I've been kind of spoiled with the old creative mode here, but so basically, to get in the vessel, you can go up either side of these back legs, and that's why these are shaped in this manner in the first place, is so you could get up to um, the interior of this ship. So basically, it was an idea like a couple of videos ago. I said I was kind of trying this idea, and I didn't really quite know how to do it. Well, I didn't want to give up, so I redesigned the whole thing and started again with a little bit different ideas in mind, and I think it works now. So as in features on this ship, okay, it's not a real tough ship. It's a steel hulled build. It does not have a shield. However, it does have a warp drive. Um, 26K storage, which is a fair amount. Um, uh, 1.5K ammo, drone hatches, kind of like standard features, and a constructor. You can see the warp core back over there. I also put in a couple options for thrust power and high performance mode, kind of also pretty standard on most of the newer designs. If they have enough thrusters to you know, make that worthwhile in the first place. Um, so unloaded with weights and volumes on, this ship is incredibly fast. Um, well, I won't say incredibly fast. It's pretty agile though. Overall, it lifts quickly. It handles pretty quickly. This and that. And with the weaponry it has on it, it could also make for a decent, well, going after like light POIs and things like that. Again, it can't take a lot of hits. I do have armored glass here, and I'm thinking I'm going to do a mod on the body here and replace a lot of these blocks in this general area with hardened steel blocks instead, because I think I can pull off more weight. So next thing, author T-Rex. Well, we had a little bit of a conversation a few days ago, and I noticed that he noticed that I was kind of building this, and he had this idea of doing like a project where we each build like one part of a set. So I already kind of had this in the works, and he had a tank kind of in the works. And we discussed like color schemes, and I think we both agreed that we kind of liked the Martian look the best currently. So he went through and he's built this tank up. Now it's not fully finished yet. He's still working on it. It doesn't have the interior done up and stuff yet, but he's been hitting it pretty hard, getting this thing looking really good. Just to take a nice close look at it, I dig how this cockpit is. That looks kind of fierce and mean and everything else. And um, so I sent him over some specs on what the current configuration of this is at the time, on how big can it fit a vessel in here. And this is a stroke of luck, and kind of it's pretty cool. But essentially, on the inside here, you have a tank can be 6 blocks total height and 15 blocks wide, and that gives you 1 block gap in between the ground and here. Um, just so happens that the tank he was building would fit those exact dimensions. I mean, go figure. That's pretty cool. I was willing to like extend these arms out, or even have to raise it up if I had to make it fit. So that was not necessary to do. Hold on, let me update my time here again. I've been doing this when I'm in survival. The time keeps on ticking. Does anybody know, is there a way to just stop time? So I can just kind of set it and have daylight and it not, make it dark. It's not a big deal whatsoever. It's just, I was just curious if there was a way to do that, if anybody happened to know. But other than that, too, looking at this tank and the styling, T-Rex, he went through and figured this out like flawlessly, like the first try. I mean, it's just like, took a little while myself to actually figure out these color schemes. And honestly, if I didn't try to take on this project here, I would have never come up with these color schemes, because this was actually kind of borrowed from, the MCRN and the Expanse TV show. But here we go, sweet looking tank. So, of course there was a lot of concerns. How is this actually going to work with weights and volumes on? For the SV side of things, it's got to be able to take in the weight of the tank, and I also put in 26K storage, so it's got to take in the weight of the storage. So I did a little bit of adjustments, but in the end here, so currently we have the tank mounted, and flying this, you can see I'm having really no problems at all taking off. It's not quite as quick as it was before, but it certainly isn't bad. But of course, I don't have anything loaded up in this ship via weight yet either. So the next thing is I want to go over here, and I'm going to load up the cargo storage here with a bunch of elevator blocks to fill it up pretty much. I'm not exactly sure how many I need in there at the time, but we're getting close here. Well, almost there. One more. Okay. So I can put in a couple more. All right, well, that is pretty darn close. So now we are loaded up with a tank and pretty much full on storage with a recommended block to use for testing storage. So how does it work now? Well, it still lifts, it still turns. Obviously, it is certainly a lot slower, but I mean, it's carrying a tank and a lot of cargo at the same time. But I'm really happy that it's actually working. I don't know how much more it could handle than what it's got in it currently, but it can do the job that it was meant to do. Now on this particular tank, that's something I just want to take a quick peek at too, is its actual weight. And okay, so this one's at about 34 tons. I tested this prior with one of my older tanks that I modified a bit to fit in here, and it weighed 60 tons. And I was with full cargo load and the 60-ton tank, I was also able to get off the ground. Since then, though, I actually I did a little bit more work to this ship, which made it a bit heavier. But I also added a couple more thrusters to the lift and a couple more thrusters in the back out in this section here. But yeah, in the end, it's working. It is doing what it is supposed to do. And bonus is it carries cargo and can perform as a like a light fighter. Well, I certainly wouldn't try to do that if it's loaded up with all this stuff, but it can. And my whole idea on making it have guns and do something else is I'm thinking about this as more of a co-op thing. Essentially, like if you and your buddy were going to go down to a planet's surface with something like this, or just fly, from your base somewhere on the planet to another location, you'd both have something to do. In other words, somebody could be in the tank, and once you land, you drop off the tank, or the tank could even drop down from being in the sky, and that's a totally valid option. And then the pilot of this could also do stuff, maybe try to take out some of the turrets or whatever. So you both got fun things to do, and it's not just like, well, I'm going to just sit here in the plane, or I'm going to jump in the passenger seat in the tank and twiddle my thumbs while you're doing whatever you're doing. Now I think you can both do fun things. So I'm quite happy about all that, and obviously, testing it in a real environment too, with weights and volumes and everything. Really looking at the numbers, just seeing how things are actually going to work out. Pretty encouraging. I mean, it's working well. Now I'm sure this tank's probably going to go up a little bit in weight as well. So, but I think this will still be able to handle it. Now, a couple other things too, like basically all the storage vessels that I've built, like either SV or CV versions, like the transits SVs, or the Charon CH-10 or Ambry CVs. What I am noticing, and it's working as intended, but to me it's a little bit weird, because essentially on these kinds of vessels meant to carry a bunch of weight, they need a lot of extra thrust to be able to perform those tasks. But when they're unloaded, they are like almost whiplash snappy on how fast they are, especially like lifting. Which I don't know. I don't really know a solution, and it's not broken, and I don't really mind it. But I keep on thinking that if there was some other slightly different way of processing this, because obviously you need those thrusters if you're going to lift stuff. But when you're not lifting stuff, it makes these incredibly quick, probably overly quick. And I don't really have necessarily a solution or anything for that. I'm just kind of wondering if somehow it could calculate the thrusters a bit different. But then again, I don't really have any good ideas on exactly what it would do differently. But the end result would be more or less so you could not have it so jerky or so powerful when it doesn't have a load on it. But then when it does have a load on it, still be able to lift it, I guess. But I'm not exactly sure how that would all work out, or if it really needs to be looked at or not. I guess that's just a observation I've got, and it's not like anything bad or anything like that. It's just something I keep on thinking about. It's been noted on like some other ships, like even on the transit ship, like the CH-3, for instance. Some people were thinking that the thrusters on there were kind of for looks, and it wasn't the case at all. In fact, I added a lot more thrusters on the ship after I already built it. When I took it in survival to test it, I realized it couldn't take off the ground with a load of elevator blocks. So I had to, and it wasn't even close to taking off the ground with a load of elevator blocks. But when it was unloaded, it was still quite quick. And then I had to add a bunch more thrusters on there so it could actually work with weights and volumes on, which was the whole purpose of the ship in the first place. But then it's so snappy when there's nothing on it. The only way I know how to really deal with that is put in like control switches right now to like shut down some of the thrusters. For instance, like over here, where did I put that? No, I lose stuff all the time. It's kind of like a messy room, I guess you could say. I'm always spawning stuff, and I'm like, oh no, where did I put it? For instance, on this one here, obviously it works and it will take off with what it's got right now, but if I were to turn off high performance mode, now this doesn't turn off a lot of thrusters, it turns off a little bit, a couple on the sides. It does turn off one of the larger thrusters on each side for the lift, and a couple thrusters in the back. Unfortunately, my choice of thrusters on the front, and I might change this yet. I use these bigger ones, and it's kind of one of those scenarios where I don't want to turn off one of the two thrusters because that looks silly. So I left them both on in standard mode. So in standard mode, with full load and the tank, will it take off? It still does. Not too well, but it's getting off the ground, and I dare say I could probably make it to space this way, but I am really moving slowly here. So I'm at 34 on speed right now. Max speed in this is 40. So it still functions, but as you could see how drastically it slows down when it's actually got a load on it. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're building vehicles that have a lot of storage on them, or like a new design, something like this, on picking up other vehicles and moving them. That there is real good reason to have a lot of thrust on these kinds of ships to pull this off. And obviously with the performance mode on, it's a lot better in, you know, with this amount of weight on it, but it's completely overkill typically for being unloaded, and would waste more fuel, of course, which it should. But anyway, it's all real positive on all this stuff. It's cool that we can build like a totally new class of vehicles to do these kinds of things, and who knows what some creative minds will come up with on maybe doing other type scenarios using the basic technology of being able to, you know, mount a HV to a SV. Lots of possibilities. But that's pretty much all I wanted to show you today, is just some of this new stuff, and definitely kudos to T-Rex on building a sweet tank, and yeah, that works, and it's themed with the MCRN. In fact, with this whole race here too, similar to how I've got the human faction and the Creel faction, or collections I should say, there's going to be one for the MCRN as well. So because there's starting to become more and more things that can be put in there. In fact, of course, these point defense things, the storage unit over here, which is 320k storage Wi-Fi. Keep in mind, I do need to add a Wi-Fi to this. I forgot about it. And then I've got this other SV over here too, which is a tier 3 SV of hardened steel construction with some guns on it. And since the numbers changed too, now this was built for the old tier CPU at tier 3, and obviously now, since the numbers are raised, it's got a whole lot more room on it to add more stuff. Unfortunately, where I kind of screwed up is I wasn't planning on putting those features in here originally, so I didn't really make room for them. Basically, I'm talking about the warp core. But you know, it could be added with some effort. But usually, I think I would probably try to make like an entirely new ship with those features pre-planned, so I would have space for it and didn't look like I ad hoc the ship to make it work later on with that. Now, is it possible to get a shield and warp drive on a tier 3? I think it absolutely is at this point in time. It would be probably tight though. You still tight with maybe guns or other things, but I don't know. I'll have to dig into it and find out what can happen. That just scared the crap out of me. Hey, little guy. You look plenty squiggly. Well, anyway, guys. Hope you enjoyed this, and yeah, I just keep on building. I got plans for quite a few more builds going on. Some of the next things I plan on doing is one, I'm gonna try to hit the 2-tier range on SV or HV. I'm undecided yet. Might be themed again with the Martian theme, but this one would be for Excalibur's challenge this month. And then, of course, I've got some other things. I kind of started on it, but I'm so early in progress, I don't even want to bother showing it because it looks like a blob of blocks. But I kind of started working on a starter Martian base that would fit with all this other stuff. Um, my goal is to have a starter base and then to have a higher end base as well. My big debate on the higher end base is whether or not it should actually have this type of docking method built into the base or not. Um, and the reason why I have a debate there is because this dock is really only set up to work with this specific ship, and it wouldn't do any good for any other ships, really. So I don't know if I should just keep it kind of separated like it is now, where this has its own docking platform if you want to use this ship, and keep the base so it's more generic and doesn't, I'm not using extra blocks or changing the design to work only with this ship versus any other ship. So that is just something I'm kind of thinking about on if I want to do it that way or not. But anyway, y'all have a good weekend. I normally don't do videos on Saturday like I am today, but it's just I really wanted to show some of this new stuff and some of the experiments done with the concept. I've got a lot more testing to do on chassis and other things, and another type of build I want to try to do is a aerodynamic build that only relies on rear thrusters to get around. And I want to see how it actually works in gameplay. I'm heard some other stuff too on it that does actually work pretty good in gameplay, and then also it can work in space too. So I'm getting I'm makes me want to build something and find out what I see. How does it actually work, and can you modify it to do a bunch of stuff, and can you save a lot of fuel and CPU costs by utilizing that method. So lots of unknowns, lots of stuff to play with. Anyway, y'all have a good day. See you later.